name's Alex, and
Today we have Tudor. I think you already know me from last time, so.
yes, and we'll be discussing if everyone should have universal basic income, and our opinions, I guess, on that topic. So, in case someone doesn't know, as Tudor didn't know, what universal basic income basically is it defines basic. Okay, too much basically. It defines a way for people to live where the government or some entity, it doesn't have to be a government, an organization from the future that could be some form of government, um, pays people a minimum income just for being people so they can have their basic necessities such as food, water covered. Um, what would be your opinion if that's a yes or a no? Let's start off with the big.
Yeah, that's a. Like always, I'll start by saying that that's a very good question. So, um, I guess the simple answer would be yes, yes, of course, it's a good idea, but uh, like all things on earth and like in our lives, it doesn't really resume to that because it would be very simple. So, the short answer is yes, but the longer answer is okay, you have to take in consideration many other factors. So one would be, of course, if that certain country or area is actually rich enough to actually endorse such ideas or such laws. Of course, it also matters how the population is divided regarding, I guess, their wealth. So if you have a lot of wealthy countrymen, it doesn't really make sense for that specific country to give them more money. So I've already outlined two of the possible problems that could arise in using such a law or passing such a law. I guess there are many others, so I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll take some of the microphone. So I understand what you're saying, 100%. I understand that ideally, yes, everyone should have their basic necessities covered. However, it doesn't work under a current form of economy, so to say, because everyone has to contribute with something to get something back. It works basically. The money is sort of still the bartering system that we used to have, where someone would trade chickens for cows. Only we attribute a value to those chickens. So instead of saying 5 chickens for one cow, one chicken is worth, let's say, $1, and the cow is worth $5. Therefore, 5 chickens is worth one cow. It's the same thing. It's just we have a number attached to it. But for people to get a minimum income, you would need someone paying that minimum income. So who would pay it? Let's say it would be the government. Well, where would the government get money to get taxes from people? Well, who would be paying the taxes? So let's say you have a country full of people and everyone decides they don't want to do anything because basic income is enough for them and they don't need anything more to achieve anything more. So then how is the government going to pay those people if no one does anything? So if the farmers don't produce food, then how are the people that don't do anything supposed to eat? Even if they get money, it will be worthless because there's nothing to eat. So no one's producing anything physically. You need people to produce things. This would work, however, bringing another topic in a future where you would have some form of robotics that is doing this work for you. So if the farmers get replaced with a farming robot that does everything by itself and can produce it at the only cost being energy. And this energy could then also be automated. So like nuclear power, for example, can be almost completely automated. You just need people to monitor that nothing goes wrong. Okay, well, let's imagine a future where, I don't know, you can monitor it with other systems and shut it down and replace things so everything can be sort of automated, which is not impossible. It's achievable. Then minimum income would be good, but then what's the point of minimum income? Because why would you would, the only thing minimum income would be good for is if you go to the market so you can't overbuy products. Opinions?
Yeah. Okay. So again, I think you bring something very interesting to this discussion, but I'd go a bit further than that, and I'd say that before actually implementing any technology or anything like this, I think, and of course I'm risking an idealized opinion here because I think it's really not possible to do this at this point at least. You need a united, let's say, united type of country, so all countries should unite in one sort of form, I know, federalization or something of the sort, where basically they're one body, because at this point you have maybe one central united government that can do all these things that you're talking about, implement automation, decide on how to actually calculate this, let's say, basic rate for paying all people. So I think central to all this idea that we're discussing at this point would be unity, because you need a central body to actually take all these decisions for you, because if you have too many small bodies taking decisions, you'll always have arguments, because there will always be debates about whether it's okay, are we doing this good, are we not doing it good, okay, having representatives of each area united under one roof, maybe that could do
Yes,
something.
but then you also have the issue, let's say if you have one body, not
Yeah.
everyone that votes for that body agrees with that body. Example, America has conservatives and Democrats. They do not get along on most topics. Point being that even if the elected body gets elected and it's fair and everything was okay, the other side can just riot because they don't want that.
That makes sense.
They
yeah.
don't want that to happen. So then they sabotage everyone's well-being because they don't agree with who was voted in.
Correct, yeah.
So even if it's one body, they're still fighting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's very utopian at this point, because there are so many possible things that could actually go wrong, and this is just one of the things that could go wrong. You have to take in consideration corruption, which could still be an
Yeah.
issue. You have to take in consideration crime and all that stuff, because people are going to continue, even if
Wow.
you have, I mean, everybody's going to have their own income. This doesn't mean that crime is going to, just
Yes,
resort
but
to
I
being
think
zero. That's what I'm saying.
if there's no more point to, so if everything is automized, so food, production of products, so anything that can be automized, like
Yeah.
computers, TVs, everything except for real estate, which is most likely not possible to automize
Yeah.
because you need a person to design a house. Eventually you could have an AI design a house, but there could be errors, so you still need people to design houses and do these things.
Yeah, and you actually need somebody to trick you into
construct
buying
shit,
stuff you don't
to
want.
cons- to construct the house and stuff like that. There's a lot of variables involved, so you can't just
That's true as well.
have it automized. I don't think it's possible, at least not in the near future. However, everything else is possible in the near future. There's examples of automized farming, examples of automized, for example, making
that's true.
products. I don't know how to give an example. You can automize making a circuit and then putting it in a TV and having the TV completed by a robot.
I think what you're referring here to, I mean, what all these things you're talking about have in common is a pattern. So I guess as long as there is a
And
pattern,
yes, the point I was trying to make
Yeah.
was actually that you would have reduced crime in the sense of robbery, and
yeah,
maybe
pretty much.
maybe even murder. You might have a reduced level of murder because
Could be.
murder can happen because of crimes. Murder can happen because of gangs, and gangs exist because of this type of robbery
Robbery,
slash
yeah.
need of money, need of wealth, right? So you get rid of
Yeah.
some of that, some of it, not all of it.
Yeah, there's
There
gonna
is
be a
going to
reduction
be
for sure.
there is
Yeah,
going
that's
to
true.
be some people
I agree.
that will always be against anything. So for example, there was always going to be, even if you even if everyone was rich,
That's true.
there would still be one person, at least one person in this world who would rob someone just for the thrill of
Exactly. I was thinking just about that, but also I was thinking about
it.
drug trafficking. I mean, if we have this united whatever, I think drugs would still be illegal, mostly. I mean, maybe they'll legalize some of it, but you can't really legalize all because some of them are basically death. So, and people are, you give them money, they always want more. Maybe at some point, they don't have money to buy a bread. Okay, now they have bread. The next thing they're going to think about, I want a car, I want
Yeah.
something else,
It becomes normal to them
Yeah.
to have the
So on and so
basic
forth.
necessities,
Yeah.
and they don't appreciate it anymore.
And then, like the new idea of being poor is not having bread or food, is not having a car.
It's
then.
just having bread or
exactly.
food, that's being poor. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's basically just always you're basically raising the scale at some point. So then of course everything else has to readjust and sort of rearrange itself based on this new scale that you're setting. So this is the risk of running such policies, I guess. But
If I want to get back to the drug topic,
yeah,
if there's a theme in some sci-fi stuff where I think it's called Chemical Utopia,
Right.
where
I think I remember.
all drugs are legalized, since technically if you're not forcing someone to take drugs, the only person you're harming is yourself, right?
Yeah,
So
makes
if
sense.
you take cocaine or meth or something, you're only harming yourself
Yourself.
unless you go crazy and then attack other people, which then becomes a
Yeah.
side effect of the drug, but it's not really the drug's fault, it's your fault for acting that way.
That way. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess.
So in the Chemical Utopia sense, drugs would be legalized, so then drug trafficking would not exist because there's no point.
That's actually an interesting point. I actually haven't thought about that. You know, actually, this sort of connects with another thing. Maybe I don't know if it's that much related, but yeah, it's like assuming whatever you're doing. Even if you take drugs, some people don't react. I mean, they take the drugs, they do enter that thrill phase, but they don't kill anybody.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
exactly.
you have two people doing the same drugs, just reacting differently. So, in this sense, maybe you have to accept that maybe you have violent tendencies. So maybe you take the drug and this sort of, you know, makes you be who you actually are. But in some sense, I think it just resumes to actually taking, accepting who you are and basically, you know, not blaming the drug or not blaming the external factor. Just have to, you know, accept that that's who you are and that's what you're doing.
Because the drug isn't necessarily making you act violently.
Exactly.
It's giving you. It just makes you feel a certain way, but it doesn't make you feel violent. It's sort of like if you drink Red Bull, right?
Exactly.
It hypes you up. It brings
It
adrenaline.
amplifies.
Yeah, it amplifies
Yeah.
your awareness for Red Bull, for example. So for I think cocaine is the one that makes you hyper vigilant and super hyper. So it just amplifies that. But then, I think the problem here as well is that everyone associates drugs with murder and crime and everything. I'm not a fan of drugs. I would not do drugs, for example. But I'm not.
Yeah, let's make that clear.
I'm not against the idea of everyone being able to do what they want, as long as harm doesn't come to me or other people around them. In the sense that, this is okay. We'll get to a different subject some other time. The idea being that people associate drugs with crime because drugs are illegal. They happen to also be next to people who are murderers or people who are more likely to commit these violent crimes. So when those violent people take the drugs, it amplifies their violence, let's say.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary. So if drugs were legal, for example, and I would go tomorrow and take cocaine, I would not go out on the street and murder some people because of cocaine.
Yeah, necessarily.
But because the drugs happen to be surrounded by people who are criminals because they're doing illegal activities such as drug trafficking and things, and they're violent by nature. Yeah, I don't know.
I think you made a fair point, and again, I'd like to also reiterate the fact that we're actually discussing this for the fun of actually understanding how some mechanisms work actually in society. And I mean this idea around drugs and stuff is we try to associate items we feel that are somehow connected, but then if you take a closer look and we try to analyze things in a non-superficial way, we do realize that at some point things, we're looking at them, we're trying to connect them, desperately trying to connect them to make sense out of them, but sometimes we're forcing them. So just like this example with drugs, okay, they're bad, but maybe they're not the reason for all the other problems that we try to see them for. This is also equally true with many other things. For example, I don't know, even with this coronavirus thing, we're trying to blame everything on it, or on the Chinese or whatever. Maybe people should start seeing things for the real value. Okay, maybe it's just this thing, and it's separate from violence and all these other things. Okay, it does combine with them, it does work together with them. Sometimes it even thrives in this environment, but it's not necessarily a factor. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you have drugs you must have violence, because if you have drugs you can have health as well, because some of these drugs actually work in our advantage. They don't necessarily.
An example for that would be, this is gonna be a bad example of violence and drugs because so I don't know if you knew that in World War II Germany, I don't know about other countries, but Germany specifically gave
Yeah.
their soldiers methamphetamine, and the reason for it was because during an attack, so an invasion, they tried blitzkrieg tactics, which isn't really an accepted form, but whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say they did that. The idea was that the soldier had to keep pushing on, and it's really hard for a human to just push and push and push themselves to the limit all the time, every day. You would break at some point, like in
Fair
a few
enough.
days. So to keep them going, they gave them meth. Meth made them feel more powerful, and they didn't know that the side effect of meth was the bad health problems, like your teeth falling out or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like
It's always been like
these
that.
health problems weren't
It's like
discovered then.
smoking.
So
True.
they gave them meth, and I can't say nothing bad happened. They did their job, but they weren't. For example, they didn't break out of the chain of command. They didn't start violently
Yeah.
doing different things.
They're basically
And it was
energized.
so this is an example. I'm giving this example because it's on a large population scale. They gave meth to millions of people, and other than the war, which was something that was happening anyway, whether or not you were taking meth, the soldiers, when they took meth, they didn't commit any extra violent things.
Yeah, so basically the
They-
drug
they-
did its job. That it just amplified
Yeah,
some
it just
of their
amplified their
made them be more efficient.
awareness and
Yeah.
their stamina or capacity of
I
pushing
think,
themselves.
I think you bring an interesting point to this discussion because I was thinking, as you were speaking about this, I was thinking that, yeah, okay, even the United States used some of these drugs. I remember, okay, maybe it's not really that much related, but if you remember LA Noir story, it was all about these soldiers bringing back shipments of, I don't remember,
Morphine.
yeah, morphine, exactly,
Yes,
which
yeah.
were they reselling, and yeah, so it was the same thing, you know, people were trying to become, they themselves were trying to assume this role of war machines. They were becoming machines. They were trying to improve their senses. And even these superhero movies that we can watch, like Captain America, they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
on the same idea basically of how
Yeah.
to enhance
With
the individual.
serums
Yeah,
or
exactly.
drugs, basically.
Yeah, to actually become better at what people were thought to be actually good at doing, like wage war and all that. So
You reminded me of some things when you
Yeah.
said Captain America. Was if you remember the line in Captain America where he says the dude who's making the super soldier serum, that's what it's called. He says that he's looking for the person that's nice because the super soldier serum enhances your natural ability.
Mm.
So he was looking for someone who was good-hearted and not someone who was just so. The reason they picked Steve over other soldiers for this serum was because he was good-hearted. So he was the type of person to lay down his life for his friend. He was nice. He wasn't a bully. And
Right.
because he was bullied, he was more likely to understand how not to bully other people. So he would be less likely to go crazy because of power.
I see, that's
And they don't choose the other people who were more. So if they gave it to him, he was skinny. He became a superhuman, let's say.
Right.
But
Yeah,
if they gave it to someone else who was bigger, so let's take an example. If you know who, I think his name was Bjorn something, the weightlifter dude, the stone from Game of Thrones.
Okay.
He's some really big guy. He's like tall and really buff.
Yeah.
If they gave him the serum, he'd be even more superhuman than Captain America was. But it did okay, not in his example because he's not a bad guy. But
Yeah.
if he wasn't good-hearted, then it would enhance his bad sides. That's why the Red Skull, I think, from what I remember about what my friend told me about the comics, because I haven't read them.
It's all based on.
The Red Skull takes some of the he tries to remake the super soldier serum, or he takes super soldier serum,
Yeah.
and because he's evil at heart, it enhances his bad side. That's why he becomes the Red Skull rather than being like Captain America, who's still human form and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I think that's it's not exactly the case of drugs, but
No, I think it was
It's-
again a fair point, but actually I'll go a bit further with this, with comparison, because I was just thinking as you were saying this, and and I've also watched all the main Marvel movies, but I've also watched some of the serials, and actually the latter they had another view on this super serum thing. Of course, everything started with Captain America and all that, but then this super serum idea sort of leaked out into many other facilities. So, for example, you have Luke Cage. Luke Cage is also an experiment of this super serum, and he ends up being
Is he not a mutant?
not
Like
really.
X-Men?
No. I think they portrayed him something like that in the comics. But as far as I've seen the show
The show.
itself, he was just some random guy who got sent to prison. But again, the theme of being sent to prison unfairly. He was a policeman. I don't know. They don't explain much about it, but it's clear that it wasn't his fault, and he's just wrongly accused. Again, he was good at heart, so everything he's experiencing is sort of a result of being good like that, and then he gets life happens, and he loses some of the faith he has in people and everything, but then somehow he gets this power, so he's given a second chance, let's say. He's being rewarded for his patience.
Yeah, he knows how to use it basically.
Exactly.
Because of his experiences.
But then you have Jessica Jones, which is another result of this super serum thing, and she's so very differently. She's also skinny. She stays skinny. She gets the super strength, but then she's different in the sense that she's a troubled individual. She's good at heart. Again, I mean, you get the point that she's she's trying to do her best, but she's a mess. So she's like a drunkard, and she's so much closer to what we know as humans. And it's interesting to see how this combined, because, like you said, when you have Captain America and the Red Skull, you have a very basic dichotomy, and you have the bad and the good.
Yeah,
the
you
good
have.
and bad. Here, in the shows, you get another feeling of a more
You get more
real.
gray line.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's more
very
like
interesting.
they're not full good or full bad.
Exactly. They're
humans
confused.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So it's,
I want to ask you.
yeah.
How do you think people become good or bad? And I'll give an example of what I mean so that you understand what I'm asking.
Yeah.
You have kids that are like 6 or something.
Right.
I'm giving an example that doesn't actually exist,
I don't
but
have any
I've
kids.
heard from
Right.
stories and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Not necessarily 6, let's say 12.
Doesn't matter.
And they
Yeah.
murder their parents, and they feel good about it, and they laugh about it, and they don't feel remorse, and they don't feel bad. There's been cases like
bad.
this. Not an exact example, but there's been cases
That
of
have been
this.
many. Yeah.
So their parents, for example, from the description of the cases and stuff, their parents weren't abusing them or doing anything bad.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
what do you think makes someone good or bad?
Okay, I'll try to answer sort of punctually to what you've given us this example. In this case, like where you have children or even other individuals, like I don't know, older people that have been taken care of and they sort of go berserk and kill people. I guess it must be some sort of mental issue, somewhere rooted deep. I mean, yeah, okay, you have parents that take care of you, but yeah, maybe you're just a maniacal sort of person. It happens. You get born with this. And I think you could accuse those parents, even though they feed you, they take care of you, because, and this is a very interesting thing, because I've been talking with many people nowadays, and I feel that parents, think that sometimes the only job they have is just, to feed you, to take care of you, to ask you if you're
Yeah.
okay. But then you have to go deeper. Again, it's this problem of superficiality.
Go deeper.
Deeper, yeah, deeper. But the idea is, as a parent, this is what I was discussing with my parents nowadays, and it might be a slight change of tone here, but okay, I would rather, and I know maybe this is exaggerated, but I'd feel very bad as a parent if I wouldn't know if my little girl or even boy, I wouldn't say little, let's say mature boy or girl, started his sex life. I don't want to know details, but I feel very bad if they had like a lot of partners and whatever, and I would think them to be still like inexperienced.
I'm so clueless.
Yeah, I don't want to. I mean, as a parent, and then again,
Okay, but
you have to see. You can see that your child is probably maniacal and is going to kill somebody. You can't. But people usually
No,
lie to
you-
themselves and
you
don't
have
see the
to-
truth. Maybe that's the problem.
depends.
Maybe.
Because sometimes kids hide things from their parents, right?
Exactly, but you have
so-
to see it as a parent. You
Yeah,
have to-
it's sort of your
You know?
job. Okay,
Exactly.
an example of what you said was, I remember a case. I think it was the Columbine shooting. Okay,
Yeah.
let's not get banned, but so that's a very good example, because the kid gave many outward examples of wanting to hurt people and wanting
Yeah.
to become a maniac that kills people. And so he wrote things in a diary. He wrote
Exactly.
he wrote
Signs.
stuff. He borrowed his dad's gun to go to the shooting range. Then he took his dad's gun without his dad's permission, went to his somewhere, shot some stuff, right? Then his dad saw that happened, but he didn't question it. He didn't push it further.
Exactly.
And eventually that kid, what I don't understand is how that kid was able to make pipe bombs and Molotovs and everything
Yeah.
without his parents noticing. How
Yeah.
do you know? How do you not notice that your child is buying these things? Or like, okay, you
Yeah,
don't
it's a
have to
good
be a controlling freak and be like, where were you? What did
Exactly.
you do?
It's
But
it's the opposite.
investigate if something seems
Exactly.
off, if something feels wrong.
Exactly.
Like
I mean,
your child comes home late at night and there's no reason for it. Like he or she,
yeah.
would come home from school and they haven't said that they're gonna hang out with friends, or
They don't have any friends, and they don't, but they're hanging out with
yes,
friends.
yes, or it's something, and they come
Yeah,
home.
it's
Let's
off.
say they leave school at like 4, right?
Exactly.
And they come home at 8.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you ask yourself, what did they do in those 4 hours?
Yeah.
You don't have to, question them about it. You should investigate in your own private detective way to find out what they're doing. And
You could ask them, but
yes, but they're gonna
have a-
lie, or they're going to get mad, or they're going to.
Theoretically, if you do it right, but then this is just
It
if
doesn't matter.
you're trying to become friends with them, but it's very difficult to do that. So those are just the few cases in which parents actually strike that chord and they manage to actually establish
But
a connection. But
that depends on the
I guess
kid
what
as
you're
well.
saying is correct. Yeah, depends on the
because
kids as well.
some kids react differently than others
Exactly,
in
and
this.
this doesn't work
situation.
like
Like,
today I decide to do this. You have to
if-
start from
If
a young age.
if your child is an introvert, for example, it's gonna be harder for you as a parent to make friends with him,
Obviously.
especially if you as a parent are an extrovert.
Ah,
Then you're going to
exactly.
talk too much to him.
Yeah. You actually you're very right about this, but we have experts. We have a lot of people,
Sure.
and then you have to come to terms with the fact that okay, maybe it's something that is beyond you, and it's not really something to be ashamed of. Just it's better to acknowledge your bravery if you actually acknowledge that okay, I can't do this, but I want to do something to help, rather than saying I can do it, but then it's okay, everything's okay. I'll just ignore it. So that happens. I mean, even with myself, sometimes I realize, it's like maybe I should go to the dentist.
Yeah.
But then I was like, nah, okay. It's like it's as long as it doesn't hurt me. But yeah, maybe you should fix it before it actually hurts somebody.
Yeah.
Because So yeah, maybe superficiality. And to sort of come back to what you were saying, the difference between being good and bad, or how that happens. It's pretty much like this. I mean, it's not really. There's not a formula. It just sort of happens.
Obviously.
Things.
I wanted to know what you think.
No,
of-
that
As in, I don't expect you to come up with a formula. I just wanted.
no. That's exactly what I think. I mean, I tried myself to find sort of a pattern. That's what we're talking about here. I tried to find how did this guy end up here, and how did this guy end up here, and you have a good guy and a bad guy. And then you have the question: is he really good or is he really bad?
But do you think?
You know?
Do you think genetics plays some of it?
Yeah, I think it does have something to do with it. But then, that's a funny thing. I think I've inherited from my grandparents this ability to be a bit sneaky, and maybe even the sense of trying to get off easily with things that maybe are not as correct sometimes, or just small things, but then it matters. Like for example, sometimes I lie, these things. Then I realize that it depends also on the subject and all that. But then some people can lie. You can lie.
Everybody lies.
Exactly. But then some people lie to do bad. Some people use this ability to do good.
That's true, but you don't lie to do good, usually.
It's true. But,
Unless you lie, for example, I don't know. It's not even a good example. So if like your girlfriend or something is like, oh, am I fat? And you lie and you say no.
Yeah, exactly.
It's technically a lie
That's
because
not-
the fact is that she could be
feel
overweight or something.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
it's not
That's what you're saying.
because you don't want to put that person down. You don't want to put your partner down, and
Yeah.
it's I think these are called white lies.
Yeah. I think that's exactly
Yeah.
what I meant. I think this is just a bad example, but then that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, it's down to I don't know what is good and bad. It's like this is going to end up very philosophically speaking, but as long as we don't understand these terms, and we won't be able to define them, because good can be so many things, and sometimes bad can be good. It just depends on the context. So to sort of sum it up, there is no good and bad. I mean, there is good and bad, but it's all down to what we perceive as good and bad.
That's true. That's more of a morality discussion. Where,
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
What's morally right and what's morally wrong is depending on who
Who
views
sees it,
Yes,
when or where he sees it, and
the
basically-
context.
And yeah.
The context is very important. For
Exactly.
example, you could say something is so someone is stealing and you say that's morally bad.
Yeah.
But then if you add in context and you see that they're starving and
They're
trying
stealing
to
of
feed their
bread.
kids and
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
stealing bread and they're not harming anyone, then
sort of changes.
it changes your point of view.
Exactly. It's still stealing, but
It's still stealing. It's still
it's justifiable.
illegal because of-
Exactly.
but it feels morally right. For example, when people root for underdogs,
Yes, exactly.
it's even if the underdog does wrong things, you feel it's justifiable and morally correct because
exactly.
they're oppressed or they're pushed down.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because
That's-
you come to think of these things, you end up finding out that actually nothing is actually so precise as we think it to be. I mean, this door could be called a window. It's just society that arranges things, in such. We're just used to knowing this as a door,
Yeah.
Nothing is true.
Well,
everything,
that's sort of a how do we call it? It's not a linguistics issue, but an association. So people associate things. So a word associated with an object is not necessarily
Exactly.
something that is
That's what I'm thinking
strict
myself.
or.
Basically, we're very.
But
this idea of
there,
freedom.
I think there are black and whites in the world. So not
Yeah.
gray lines. For
Yeah.
example, let's not say a door because it's too complex.
Yes.
Let's give an example. I don't know. That's grass, right? No,
Okay.
let's imagine
Yeah,
there's
let's
grass
imagine.
on the
Okay,
ground.
it's cool.
And
That could be
I,
grass.
I'm not saying, I'm not referring to the word grass. I'm referring to the object itself. So that's grass, and it's green.
Right.
That's factually accurate. It's impossible for you to say that's not green. And here I'll give you an example of why you cannot say it's not green. Because
Okay.
okay, the color green is debatable, but you can
Yes,
we
okay.
associate the color green with a wavelength. The wavelength is a number that can be quantifiably measured. You
Okay,
can
that makes sense.
measure
That's actually very interesting. Yeah, it's a counter.
what
argument
we
for
see, and it's actually and we call green, is not necessarily what other things see, but they see the same wavelength.
that. Exactly.
So they
Yeah,
still
yeah.
perceive the same photons and everything, which
Yeah.
is measurable, which you can physically. It's
Interesting.
like a universal law, right?
It's actually the name.
So these
that
are
we-
black
yeah,
and white.
Exactly. Yeah,
That
that's true.
grass is green. It's impossible that it's something
It's
else.
undebatable. Yeah, exactly.
But
Just use green to define it, but then
yes, but
it is what it is.
the wavelength is still there. I don't remember
Exactly.
what the wavelength for green is.
That's actually
but,
interesting.
That
That sort of brings a bit of order to my world.
color,
I'm trying to-
for example, is a human concept to describe the wavelengths. But these
Exactly.
wavelengths still exist. So you can
Yes.
say the word color could be a wrong way to describe
Exactly.
it. But the fact that color exists is true.
They describe a constant, so yeah.
Yes, sort of.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Or,
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes actually
so
good
there's
sense.
black and white
There are
stuff
some things like this.
where
yeah.
you can say this is this or this is that, which
Yeah,
is
it's
factually
undebatable.
accurate no matter where you are in the Well, okay, here comes a problem which you would not know,
Yeah.
but I sort of dabbled in. I wouldn't say
Okay.
I know about it. You come into quantum physics problems
Oh. Okay.
where
That's definitely
what
not
is and what isn't necessarily true. So
Yeah.
a particle can exist here,
Yeah.
but not exist there at the same time.
Okay, I see what you mean.
It's
Yeah,
some
it's
sort
interesting.
of quantum physics logic which
it makes
doesn't
sense.
respect our normal way of thinking.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so it's actually quite
So
interesting.
you can say, for example, I think everyone can agree that murder is bad. Would you say that's a black and white?
I think this
subject?
is something that people should ask the American government, because they've been killing people, and they're trying to excuse themselves as heroes. I'm not saying that it's not necessarily like that, but and there are many other governments, but this one comes to mind because they've really brought this to attention, and they've really been trying to kill a lot of targets, I guess they call them. So murder, I think, is one of the most debatable ones, because sometimes murdering somebody, murdering somebody. It depends on it depends on the context. But then, generally speaking, yeah, murdering is bad because if you come to think of it, just the constant here is
Okay.
one person taking the life of another, and we know that life is sacred and all that.
What about animals?
Even animals, I guess.
So would you say murder is bad, even against animals? I would say murder. So I would agree that murder is
But
a clear line that it's bad.
It's
No matter
bad.
who it is. So let's say someone tortured a bunch of I don't know
yeah, you
animals
said
and
torture,
kids.
so it's already bad.
Okay.
Yeah,
They do some really bad things, right?
right.
And then people try to justify them murdering that person. So execution, for
Yeah.
example, they try to justify it by saying, okay, but he was really bad, so we got rid of him, so it's good. But at the
Yeah,
same
good
time,
point.
it's still murder. You're
You
still
have a point.
taking the life of a person, even if that person's shit or scum or
That makes sense.
horrible.
And there are laws that should actually prevent you from doing that.
I think murder is
applied
bad,
correctly.
but at the same
Yeah.
time, when I hear some people like serial killers or something, I would be like, okay,
Yeah.
send them to the chair or send them to
I think-
space. Get rid of that
I
person
don't
because
know.
they're bad.
I heard about this quote, or these how do you call them, inspirational thoughts, and somebody said, okay, if you forgiving is one thing, but then forgetting is another.
Yeah.
So okay, you might be very smart to forgive, but then you shouldn't really forget, because and this
True.
connects to the idea of murder, because okay, you're taking the life of somebody else, so in a sense, you won't forget that feeling. You might forgive somebody for killing another person, but you won't forget the feeling you're having
Yes, but
when they did that.
you repress it by justifying it to yourself by saying that person was bad.
That's true. But then again, I just want to make this clear. I mean, we have laws, and that was the idea of laws. It was to save
Outline.
people from taking such heavy choices.
Yeah, so it's an outline of morally right things.
Exactly. And I think
Not all the time.
these laws came to
But-
exist exactly because of this. Somebody thought, okay, we don't want people to go
No.
killing others and feeling bad, because we don't know if it's actually good or bad.
No. I'm pretty sure laws came to exist not because people thought of such complex
Okay.
things. I'm pretty sure they came to exist because someone said it's more useful if I have 100 people than if I have 20.
Okay, that's
So
what
like
I'm saying.
tribes, for example, the tribes get along with each other, and
That's
they
just-
they mutually agree not to murder each other, but then they go murder other tribes. So then the tribes become bigger by mutually agreeing not to murder each other and form societies and stuff like that. And then
that's
these mutual agreements get put on paper and get decided as laws or
that makes
stuff
sense.
like that. But then laws, these are like basic mutual understanding laws, because then you come to when actual laws came to be,
Yes.
which is around like the Middle Ages era, and
Yeah.
you get questionable things like the law that you can't insult the king, and then you get executed if you insult the king or some.
Yeah.
These are laws that someone thought up, but they didn't think of these laws because they wanted to make a moral choice. They thought of these laws because it benefits them and they could control it.
Yeah, but I think nowadays they sort of that's still happening in many countries,
It
in many
still
areas,
happens.
but they try to dumb it down, as in they're trying to make laws help society
No.
and civilians, or at least
Uh,
that's what they want to do. But I think it
Depends on the person who is making the laws.
Exactly, that's what I was about to say.
Do you remember the case, which I think is still going on? I haven't looked into it, of
Yeah.
Venezuela.
No,
when,
actually, no.
Okay, so this guy got suspiciously elected
Okay.
in Venezuela. I think his name was Madrazo.
Okay.
He gets elected in Venezuela, and then he does some. I don't remember exactly what he did. He did something that crashed the economy in Venezuela in such a
Right.
case that it was actually profitable for Venezuelans to go on a World of Warcraft account, farm gold, and then sell that account, and they would actually have money to pay for food. That's how
Wow.
bad their economy became because of this guy.
Yeah.
He did some corrupt things around there, and
Obviously.
now after it got worse because they wanted, so they had protests
Yeah,
to take him down and everything.
which makes sense.
What he did was he put the army against the protesters,
Right.
and he was like, no, I'm not backing down even if the law says I should. He just basically took control and became a
Over-
dictator because he
yeah.
had the army on his side.
Yeah.
And then I think the UN or America, one of these two,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
both, tried to send food to Venezuelans through trucks and boats and stuff. And the army torched these trucks of supplies just because Madrazo didn't want the population to have food because they were against him.
Wow.
So-
okay, that's a very different level of evil and bad and all that. But unfortunately, those things sort of happen as well. So
Yeah, it's like
we're far from that idea of being united as we maybe some of us
Yes.
would wish and all that. It's tragic.
I think it's not impossible to unite everyone, but the problem is, I am going to sound really dumb. The problem is there's too many stupid people, and I'm not saying I'm smart. I would say I'm
Yeah, I see what you mean.
average or
I'd
whatever. I'm not saying I'm smart. I'm not saying I'm smarter than those stupid people. I'm just saying there's too many people who think they don't stop to analyze something. They just do what they think.
maybe ignorant. I think not necessarily stupid, but ignorant in the sense that
There's,
they act
there's
on their.
definitely quantifiable intelligence. So I would say
Obviously.
stupid people.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we're far too many stupid people, and
Let's give an example
yeah, it's true.
of Europe. I would say so. Okay, from my point of view.
Right.
So, as context, I used to live in America.
True.
And then I moved to Europe. So I see things differently than other people in Europe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For me, Europe is a cesspool of, let's say, pride.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
In the sense that, so Americans are prideful and nationalist, yes.
True.
But with each other, they're like, you're my American brother and I accept you.
Yeah, yeah.
Europe, which could unify and would be good for Europe as a whole. So there's no
I think I see what
logical
you're saying.
there's no logical discussion of saying let's unify and it's bad. Why would it be bad? What could you give as a negative example? I'm just gonna let you.
I wouldn't. I mean, okay. I'm a strong supporter of this sort of European Union idea, federalization and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be hard for me to find. But if I were to find a fault, it would probably lie with the fact that sovereignty for most countries would be questionable in such situation. And this is what most people talk about when referring to negative aspects. And
That's
they
not what
stress
I
this.
see. Let me explain
But-
a little bit of what I
yeah.
see. So the way I see it is that Europe could be the continent Europe, or what you consider European Union now,
Yeah.
could be the United States, and then each country could be a state. So it could
For
you could
example.
take exactly everything from America, the way it
Yeah.
functions, put it into Europe, and it would work.
With
But
slight adjustments, but yeah, mostly it would work. Yeah.
but French people don't like English people because of history. German
That's
people
true.
don't like I don't know, other people because of history. For example, Romanians don't like Hungarians because of history, and Hungarians don't like Romanians because of history. And
True
it's stupid because
it's history.
from my point of view, it's stupid because
It's true.
our generation hasn't done anything to each other, but neither has our
This is
parents'
it.
generation, neither has their parents' generation. But
That's misogyny. Yeah, exactly.
at some point in history,
Yeah.
they said, "What the fuck? We don't like this, and we disagree." And they propagated it through their children, and we're getting it propagated too. So all the time I hear from, I wouldn't throw my parents under the bus, but
Yeah.
sometimes.
different
So
elder
my dad has a friend.
Teachers maybe.
My dad has a friend
Some teachers.
who's
usually.
from Transylvania,
Right.
and he speaks Hungarian because he's from a family of Hungarians,
Yeah.
and they're good friends. They understand each other. They get along, no problem.
Right.
But then at the same time, my dad sees something and he's like, "Oh, Hungarians," just out of
Yeah. It's
what he was taught, not what he experienced.
Exactly. It's like you're
And this
getting to
happens all over
stimulus.
Europe because
Exactly.
you have the example of
It's true. I agree.
I can't remember the exact example. There was some example with France, not saying France is the bad example or something.
No, there are many
where
others.
they discriminated against some Romanian medical students
Right.
because they were Romanian,
Romanian. Okay.
even though it wasn't their fault. It was some stupid example of like that.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily. I'm not saying necessarily for Romanians because we're Romanian, but
No,
it
no.
happens between other countries too, like France and Germany, and
I'd
they
go
disagree
even,
and they.
you know, in the Balkans, the Greeks have problems with almost all their neighbors. They
Yes,
don't like
yes.
any of them, and it's also historically. The bottom line with this is, you know, you have to cut this sort of negative viewing of other entities. Let's just call them that. It's not about nationalities. Also, it's also about
It's about stupid
age
people.
differences. You know, like we're sometimes thinking, old people see young people as unrefined and, you know, uneducated.
Yeah.
We see old people as, you know, people that, you know, are just out of
Uneducated because
Exactly.
they're choosing differently than
Exactly,
we choose.
true. The bottom line is, you know, we just have to, each of us has to agree that, you know, we have to take this path of acceptance in a way, and we have to accept the people around us, and we have to try to stop being so judgmental and, you know, sort of build ourselves, stop seeing what others do, just concentrate on ourselves, and if
Yeah,
we
yeah.
each do that, I guess we'd be
I agree
very
with
far
you,
at this
but
point.
at the same time, they're stupid people.
Unfortunately, yeah.
What do you do about so? I would
Educate them in this sense. I mean,
yes, but they don't want to be educated. They don't want to accept
well, yeah,
these things. So let's give an example of a good union.
right.
European Space Agency
Okay.
functions at
Right.
some level. It functions almost on the same level as NASA, I would say, at the sense
Okay.
that I think it was the European Space
Financing
Agency
or-
that
yeah.
recently, in like the last few months or
Mhm.
something, they landed on an asteroid and took a sample from it, right?
Mhm.
That's a really great accomplishment. It's really
Indeed.
hard.
Yeah.
It hasn't been done before. It's the first time.
Right.
Okay. So
Huh.
those were different European people working together.
Right.
What worked? Well, they were all smart. What doesn't work?
I don't know. Maybe.
When
I-
when you have the major population being
Yeah.
against each other because they're too. I wouldn't. Okay, let's not say stupid because it's
What about division? Maybe they're too divided. You know, each has his own interest.
yes, but
You know, here with the space agency, that it's actually a good example because all these people are there to research, to find new things about space, blah blah. They all have the same sort of the same goal, you know, to discover something. So maybe it's the goal that unites them.
okay.
You know,
But we should all have the same goal. For example,
Exactly.
in Europe,
that's the point. Yeah, it's a
So-
very good point.
if you stay
Yeah.
if you watch some movies and if you play some games or if you're
Yeah.
cultured at some point and you aren't stupid. I can't put it any other way. I'll give an example
guess.
of our Romanian people because I don't feel
Yes.
bad about insulting a lot of them.
That's true. I
There's
guess.
so many
they deserve
people that are not cultured in the sense that you ask them about some movie and they don't have a deep understanding of that movie or they don't understand like
Yeah.
they don't they watch a movie for example if it has action or they watch a movie if it
Yeah,
does
yeah,
something
they're
they don't-
superficial. I think
yeah,
that's what
it's a
yeah,
superficial
way of
watching a
seeing,
movie.
sorting. Yeah.
If you
that's
watch some
I mean,
good movies you would see the great things you can and if you look at history and if you
right.
think about it, there's no reason to fight with each other because you don't accomplish anything except putting everyone in a worse state than if you worked together.
You end up worse. You yourself. I mean, okay, if you're in this, even if you're an egoistic person, and you know you feel like you want to do something for your own gain, being hateful, being you know grudgeful, and so on and so forth, this won't help you either. So you end up actually doing things that you know end up worse for others, but for yourself as well. While you know just being good could actually end up okay for you. It could end up bad as well, but at least you have this you know this maybe 15% chance that 15, 50, so on, 70, 80, depending on the situation. There is a chance of something good actually happening to you. Whereas on the other side, you know, there's zero chance of something good happening.
Okay. I understand what you're saying in the sense that even if you're egotistical,
Yeah, exactly.
right? if you want good things to come to you, you have a higher chance of good things
Exactly.
happening in coming to you and you being able to profit if other people are united with you. So
Exactly.
even if you're
Exactly.
the most egotistical person ever and you think you're the greatest person ever,
Yeah.
without the support of other people, you would not survive.
That's how I see it.
You
I
would.
mean,
So let's give an example of. I'll give a great example for what you were saying.
yeah.
Alone, every human alone, you would
Right.
have to hunt for your own food.
Yeah.
Gather your own water, gather your own wood for your own fire to survive winter, and so on and so on. So you would get nowhere because this would take up too much time.
Exactly, and it would interfere with others.
It would interfere with your
You'd end
time
up-
to think about the world,
Exactly.
to produce something else, to produce art, to produce.
Yeah, you could be good at that.
Yes,
When you have to
and you could be
store-
bad at these survival things.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So even if you're egotistical, it benefits you when people work together.
Yes, this one. I mean, what I'm trying to say, I think this is from a game actually. Bad blood usually leads to bad blood. I mean, in the sense that even if you think of doing something bad, it will end up, you'll end up doing something bad that will affect you as well. You
Yeah,
can't take
obviously.
minus, do something that, ends up being a minus and somehow
And
gain
profit,
something
yeah.
from that.
Well,
Minus it is, minus it is.
depends what kind of minuses you do.
Okay, but
For example, corruption minuses in Romania usually end up with pluses.
I think, okay, but that's a sort of a lack of
Example.
equilibrium. But
Gigi Becali.
yeah, but I don't think he's happy either. Too much money could lead to other
Yes,
problems.
But
Like your kids don't study.
he basically committed a crime, went to jail for 2 or 3 years.
couple of years. Yeah, let's just
Couple
say.
of years.
Yeah, I guess.
He wrote a book while he was in jail.
Which was horrendous.
I have no idea. I
say the
haven't
least.
read it. It doesn't
It
matter.
was probably horrendous.
The point being, he had a nice cushiony jail. He didn't actually go to an actual
true.
prison,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
and in the end, he still has his money.
That's true, but this is the law's fault. And then they have to adjust laws, but they don't want to adjust laws. But okay, this is very different. But then my point is, he didn't gain anything. He might think he gained
Gained
something.
money.
He gained money, but he didn't gain happiness. Probably he's
You don't
unhappy.
know. You don't know that.
I don't know that, but I'm
Doesn't
pretty
he have a
sure.
daughter? And a
Yeah, I
wife?
think he does. But that's my point. I
He's
felt
achieved his goal in life.
all this time I've been living. It's not been so long. I'm 27 years old. It's not really a lot, but then all the time I felt, I felt that there's always some sort of karma. There's always, okay, maybe the law doesn't get you, but you'll end up somehow paying that debt. You're doing something bad. You're screaming at somebody for no reason. Something bad's gonna happen to you because you accumulate all this negative. So
Example that I
Happens.
know from my ex.
right.
Serial killer goes out, murders a bunch of women,
Ouch.
and tortures them and stuff.
That's not
The
nice.
police can't catch him.
Right.
And he turns himself in. Why? Because he was like, okay, you guys are too stupid to catch me, and he just wanted
Right.
to laugh in their face. And then he gets executed, I think.
Right.
Or he goes to jail, and he doesn't care. So he
Right.
gained the satisfaction of murdering and doing all these
Yeah.
horrible things. All those people suffered and didn't gain anything. They had their life ended basically.
Right.
Basically, they had their life ended, right?
That's true.
And
Ah.
he got pluses.
Well, he.
You're saying
according to
you're
his point, yeah.
you're
I
thinking
see.
of it from your point of view. You wouldn't like to be in
Unfortunately,
jail,
yeah, that's
but
true.
maybe he enjoys it. So
Yeah.
he didn't suffer anything.
But the minus is not. I mean,
You
true.
you can never punish him enough for how many lives he
You can't. No,
he
that
took
is not.
and how
Yeah,
many
exactly.
lives he destroyed.
Especially if he
Not-
doesn't kill,
not-
you can do anything.
Not
to him,
only
yeah.
the people he murdered.
bad.
Imagine their family, their
Exactly.
parents, their
What
friends.
can I say? I mean, yeah. there
Those
some
people are
things
destroyed too, right?
unexplainable. At some point, you end up thinking that they're unexplainable, but everything has an explanation. You
Yeah,
have
this
to-
was just a sort of counter argument to
I
a
mean,
minus doesn't
yeah,
bring a
that's true.
plus and all. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily true because it depends on how you view
Exactly. Everything.
what is a plus.
And we're going to end up in the same point we were discussing earlier.
Yes.
That nothing is true, everything is permitted in a way because okay, it's debatable to the point where you're thinking, okay, is this real? Is it not? Is it quantifiable? Does it exist? And so on and so forth. So yeah, okay, life is complicated, but I think it's worth living, and
So let's do a final sort of verdict
Oh yeah.
on universal basic income where we
For,
started.
for your 12 subscribers,
Yes.
which I'm one of them.
So, is universal basic income a good idea or not?
Yeah, we've come so far. Okay, yeah, it's a good idea. Is it? Can you
Unachievable.
implement it? It's discussable. Maybe it could be in some sort of form. In the form that I'm thinking at this point, in this, universal utopian, everybody's going to profit, no more poor people on earth thing. I really doubt it. So basically, at this point, I think it's going to end up just a thought, an idea.
I'm gonna say
Discussing.
that it's not a good idea,
Right? Okay.
even though. So it seems like an ideal and it seems like a good idea, but it's not a good idea because if you give everyone universal basic income, they just won't achieve anything because their survival instincts won't kick in to push them to do better, to push them to do anything. Not everyone, but a lot of people.
I like this. I was about
And
to say that. Yeah.
That
Some of them.
that will lead to a worse society than we currently have. However, I think the solution, instead of it being universal basic income so everyone has their basic necessities covered, would be a form of societal support for people who are unable to achieve things like homeless people. Instead of giving them money, instead of giving them, if you gave a homeless person $100,000, even if they got a home and everything, they still wouldn't have the tools and
Maybe the
capabilities
yeah.
to stand on their own 2 feet.
I agree.
So you need to support them with
Different.
a job, with a way to gain the skill to do a job.
Something like that.
But-
Education, I think. Education.
But some people are against that and they prefer not to do anything. I think
there are
those people are
like this, yes.
unhelpable. In the sense that
that's true.
can't help someone if they don't want to be helped.
Exactly. But then they need to be fixed somehow. So yeah, it's very. This is something that we should discuss in another. It's
Yeah.
very debatable. So
Well,
very
this has been very long. Thank you for
it's been
discussing
very, very
it
long.
with me.
Please don't die of boredom. Please, I beg you.
And yeah, I guess we'll see each other
Okay.
next time and we'll discuss
Yeah,
something
sure.
else hopefully.
For sure. There's
And
always something to discuss.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you as well.